Alright, look at that price. Someone paid $25.95 New Zealand, which is about $13 American, for a secondhand Hoobastank album. Spending that much on a brand new Hoobastank album seems a bit much, but wonder how long ago that was. You can't really tell because I use the same stickers even now from Real Groovy. But I picked this up for $1. I found this probably about 2 years ago. It was in one of those periods where I was finding it was easy to find things in secondhand shops, easier than it is now. And I remember picking up this up with like a whole bunch of other things I found on the same day, like 10 or 15 different CDs. And yeah, this one was $1. Now, I've never been the biggest Hoobastank fan, and that still stands. The main reason I bought this, I'd say the primary, or maybe even the only reason, is one song, which I'll talk about in a moment, and really the only Hoobastank song that I like. Now, the song that you probably think of when you hear that name, Hoobastank, which incidentally is a really bad band name. You know, I've said before that names are, I guess, not really that important, and it's probably the same for people. When you name your kid, a lot of times you hear a name for the first time, you think, oh, that's weird, or I don't really like that. But then once you know the kid becomes the name, and the name becomes a kid, and it kind of, you don't even really notice the sound of it, unless it's absolutely atrocious, you know, like calling you, you hear some of those stupid names people choose for their kids, like almost like joke names, like I'm sure you've seen them heard them on TV. Like some people were like, what was it, like? Oh, I think it was in New Zealand. We had one. Every year they release a list of the names that have been disallowed by the government agency that registers births. There are a very small number that are allowed. For example, you're not allowed to put certain titles in a name, like justice, or chief, or judge, or sir, because those are all titles that can be used, or doctor, that are used in society to signify certain positions. So you can't use them in your name because that would cause confusion. But also, if the name, I think there's like a kind of phrase they use, like unusually, I don't know, it would cause problems. Like there was a name I remember was like Ultra Gangster. Like the kid's first name, the parents wanted to give it was Ultra Gangster. Ultra Gangster Smith. That's obviously, that's like a form of child abuse in my opinion. But like my niece, she has got 2 kids, a son and a daughter, and the 2 names that she chose, and if she watches this, maybe I would feel quite bad, but she's not going to watch it. But anyway, the first time I heard the names of her kids, I was actually no, my opinion was the names were okay, but my parents, they said they didn't like the names. But then it's only like the first time, and then after that, just got the other kids' names, and you never even think about it again. Well, it's kind of similar for a band. Like I remember before Audio Slave formed with Chris Cornell and the Remnants, Rage Against the Machine, I was really excited about that band, and it was talks, so they're getting together, and I remember the first name that was touted by the press was, they're going to be called Civilian, which I thought was a stupid name, but I didn't. But then it came out Audio Slave. What an awful name that is, Audio Slave. Soundgarden, when you think about it, is a pretty stupid name as well, but that has a little bit more, I don't know, something to it that can you can leave a little bit it leaves a little bit to your own imagination. Soundgarden, but Audio Slave, it sounds like it sounds like a poorly written science fiction title or something. Anyway, my point is the name Hoobastank is not the greatest name in the world, is it? And every time I hear it, it kind of sounds stupid. and telling someone you like the band Hoobastank. You might be a little bit embarrassed to say that. That's their symbol, the infinity sideways lying down 8, or lazy 8, I think they call it. Because you can see in the double O in Hoob, they use the infinity symbol. You remember when you were a kid, did they ever tell you the teacher would make you do lazy 8s in the air? And that was meant to test your hand-eye coordination. So you're meant to kind of trace the outline of an infinity sign or a lazy 8. Yeah, don't know why I talked about that. But anyway, you see the front cover. Now, the condition of this is pretty good. This came out in, 2003, I think? Yeah, look at that. Bang on, 2003. On Island Records. Now, I talked about before that when I go CD shopping or secondhand CD shopping, and there's shelves and shelves full of 99% trash CDs. My eye is drawn. I'm actually quite good at it now, that I can almost kind of just scan a shelf with, say, 50 CDs and really kind of just focusing on the ones that might be a little bit interesting. And one of the ways that I do that is by record label symbols or colors. And Island is obviously always one that's easy to pick out because it kind of uses that slightly like, what is it, like a the spectrum of the rainbow or something like that, or whatever it is. Sometimes they also have that little palm tree, like a yellow and black, a black with a yellow background palm tree is another symbol you see for Island. They stopped using that, I think, in the late 80s. I've talked before about other record labels that I kind of scan in, like Warp Records is a big one. Sub Pop, obviously, that symbol is easy to pick out, the black and white two-tone monochrome thing. Epitaph is another one that's easy to pick out. Nothing, which is not a very common one obviously to find. It's only basically 9 Inch Nails releases, but there are a few other ones. And then even like things like Interscope or Warner's. If you see that like a major label release, you think, well, at least it's probably a band album, like an actual album, as opposed to things that are lesser known. Maybe it's just going to be a classical compilation, which makes up about 75% of the stock you find in these shops. But anyway, this came out in 2003, and that song, The Reason, that's the song that most people know, and it was probably the first song I ever heard of theirs, and that song was played a lot, and you still even hear it to this day, played on rock radio, and sometimes in other places too, like I think it's been played in movies and things like that. I never really liked that song at all. I'd even say that I disliked it. I thought it was quite a drony, dreary, boring song. And a lot of times I feel that way about a song, and my mind changes over time, and I come to appreciate it. But that's not the case with this song. I've never really come around to it. It says that the song appeared on PlayStation 2 music game SingStar, the first episode of the Netflix comedy drama Beef, the second season of Channel 4 sitcom We Are Lady Parts. I'm sure it wasn't something bigger than that, another movie, but I might be wrong. So yeah, that seemed to be a big song. I was seeing how it did in the charts. Its song debuted in the US Billboard charts at 62. It reached a peak of number 2 after 13 more weeks. Now, that's pretty good, isn't it? That's kind of like a slow burner to be on the chart with starting at 62 and then climbing slowly over 13 weeks to the number 2 position. Who knows what the charts do nowadays? Like, charts are almost meaningless, really, aren't they, in this day and age, because they're made up of so many different things. And they were back then as well, but because of physical music sales are only a tiny percentage of makeup of a chart position. But back then that actually meant something. In 2003, even, though things were starting to change at that time, that did mean something. To be at number 2 on the Billboard charts, single charts, meant you had to be selling a pretty decent amount and be being played on the radio a pretty decent amount as well. It says it was also successful in Oceania, where I live, reaching number 7 in Australia and number 5 in New Zealand. Top 10 in many European countries, including Wallonia. And if you don't know where Wallonia is the southern half of Belgium. Belgium is divided into, how do they refer to the top half? It's not like, they speak Flemish, or they speak Dutch, but they call them Flemish, and they call the other ones Walloons. So Wallonia and Flemington. But I've seen that they divide the music charts in Belgium into those two sides, because I guess the culturally Dutch Fleming people might be more drawn to Dutch language music, and the southern Wallonian French-speaking population might be more drawn to French-speaking music. And there are some famous French musicians, but actually were Wallonians, or what do you want to call them? Like I think his name's Dick Arnergen, and he sings in French. He actually features on the Science of Sleep soundtrack, that Michel Gondry movie that came out in the mid-2000s, and he sings in French, and I thought he was French, but apparently no, he is a Belgian from the Wallonian area. I'm trying to see if there's another Belgian musician. Is it Jacques Brel? Is it Jacques Brel Belgian? I got a feeling he is, but I might be completely wrong about that. No, I'm just kind of flicking through this. I can't see Jacques Brel mentioned anywhere here. Regardless, this doesn't really have much to do with Hoobastank, but Hoobastank aren't that interesting to really be talking about exclusively. So he is Belgian. I was right. Jacques Brel is Belgian. He was born in Schaerbeek, Brussels, in Belgium in 1929. And he died young. He was only 49, Jacques Brel. If you don't know who Jacques Brel is that guy. He was a French language singer, but obviously he was a Walloon. And he sings, at least as far as I know, his most famous song is that Le Moribond, I think. Le Moribond. Anyway, moving on from Walloons. What's she doing? Some sort of that's like a padded cell, isn't it? Like a mental institute. I was going to say she's like a nun, like a Buddhist nun with a shaved head, and she's praying, but actually she's not praying. She's wearing a hospital gown, and this looks like some sort of enclosed room where she's perhaps being kept for her own safety due to various reasons. Now, I haven't said the reason. The reason. It's a kind of a pun, isn't it? I haven't said the song on this that I do like, because there is a song I do like on this. There's the members. When I think of these guys, this band, I associate them with Incubus and Linkin Park. And I think I associate them for various reasons, because they were around a similar time, weren't they? Obviously, Linkin Park kind of were famous before and after, and were much, much, much bigger. But they came up in a similar scene, I think, in kind of Southern California, LA suburbs. And I think I've read that they were kind of friendly with each other. Maybe like there was even a member was in one of the bands at one time, and something like that. Like one of the bass players was maybe in Hoobastank and then went to Linkin Park, or vice versa. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I've read that before. See if there's special thanks. Do they thank Linkin Park or Incubus? I'm not seeing it from my... Maybe you can see it. Maybe you're reading this, looking at that, and you can see. There it is right there, and you can't see it. And I'm like, no, I can't see it. That's very special thanks to Dr. Eugene Giddens. What he did, Dr. David Key. They're thanking two doctors. What did they did? I see down the bottom. For taking care of me and saving me after my accident. I see that. That's the specific guy, Dave Estrin. Now I also noticed this was produced by Howard Benson. And if you look through Howard Benson's production discography, he it's actually done quite a few different kinds of bands, but he also did a lot of work with POD, which again is from a similar kind of time period, that early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. They were more new metal, rap metal, as opposed to these guys, which had some new metal elements, Hoobastank, but not as much. But he worked with them a lot. He also worked with there's a few others he worked with as well. These guys, I can't remember who it was now. But you see, this is mixed by Chris Lord Elge or Elge. We talked about him a bunch of times. He also mixed the some of the songs on the POD album Satellite, specifically Alive, the Alive single. I feel so alive. That song, it was missed. You can see that the focus is having some trouble. So we got the lyrics and some kind of different kinds of illustrations of various things that I'm not sure exactly meant to represent what. But the song that I like is, there they are, track 5, Just One. The reason I like it, the first time I heard that was when I was living in Japan. And I lived in Japan, would be almost 20 years ago now. It feels like, sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday, but other times it feels like it was 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, TV was more watched than it is now, I guess is the easy way to say it. It was, I barely, nowadays in 2024, I barely even watch TV. I probably watch TV at I could count on one hand at this time. The number of times I watched TV this year, 2024, I could count on one hand. And there's various reasons for that, but I'd say that when I say watching TV, I mean sitting down and turning on the TV, not streaming. Not that I watch a lot of streaming stuff either, to be honest, but whereas when I was living in Japan, obviously living in another country, especially a country like Japan, you spend a lot of time kind of exploring the new country you live in and the new society and culture you're part of in some way. And also I was working for a job that was kind of, took a lot of my time. But when you come home from work, sometimes you'd sit down and I would watch TV while I was having dinner. I lived in this little apartment. It wasn't actually that little, it was quite sizable. But some of the TV, you could have this, you had a button there and you could get dual language. They would have the possibility of an English sound, especially when you watch the news and certain movies, you can switch between Japanese and English, which is quite handy, especially back then, Anyway, I'm really rambling, but one of the TV ads advertising, I think like Asahi or one of the other Sapporo beer or something like that, was the soundtrack, the music they used was the Hoobastank song Just One. And it was Hideki Matsui, the baseball player, who went on eventually to play with the New York Yankees. Some Japanese players start off in the Japanese league, and the Japanese league in Japan's pretty big. I think you'd say baseball's the number one sport in Japan. And the fans are pretty passionate about their local teams, like the Yomiuri Giants, which is the Tokyo team, or the Chiba Mariners, which is kind of East Tokyo, I guess, or the Seibu Lions, which is kind of Saitama, which is up north of Tokyo, and who else? The Hanshin Tigers, which is Osaka's team, or the Hokkaido Ham Fighters, which is the northern island of Hokkaido. Hiroshima Carp, which is a team that's actually owned by the fans. I think I remember. You know how like Green Bay Packers in America and the NFL, the bands can. The fans can kind of invest equity and be part owners of the team. Isn't that a thing, or am I imagining that? Well, apparently the Hiroshima Carp baseball team is organized the same way. It's run the same way. It's owned by the fans. Well, Hideki Matsui started off playing in that league, the Japanese baseball league. And if a player obviously does well there, then they can be scouted to go play in, I guess, the big leagues. The, what is it, MLB? MLB, Major League, yeah, MLB. And he did so. And obviously there's that Japanese guy there in the, playing baseball at the moment. I don't know what team he's in, but he's like, what's his name? I don't even know his name, but I see him mentioned and his name written from time to time. And he's doing very, very well. Ichiro, obviously, back in the day, Ichiro Suzuki, played for the Seattle Mariners and a few other teams. He started off playing in Japan first. Anyway, the point of my rambling is that they often use these sports players to advertise things. And they often also use music songs as part of the ad. And they would have the little name up in the corner of the screen, like where I'm pointing. They would have the name of the band in Japanese and English usually, and the name of the song. And so you think if you're interested in the song, you go find it. So obviously it's like kind of a promotional device for the band, but yeah. So that was really my only positive interaction with Hoobastank, because everything else I ever heard of them, I kind of just wouldn't say I hated or anything, but it's kind of felt nothing about, and just kind of, they were just like a band that were there, but I never was interested in any way whatsoever. But I do like that song, Just One. So if I were to recommend one song, it would be Just One. I would recommend Just One. Just One. Get it? No. So yeah. The condition is, can you see that? You can see some small scratches around the edges, can't you? But it actually plays fine because I was playing it earlier this evening. And you know, when I often, like tonight, my wife works late, and so it's just me here with my son. My son's in bed now. But usually from about 5, well, I'm making dinner, you know, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. I make dinner, and I make my son turn off the TV because he watches TV, Paw Patrol or something like that. And I make him turn off the TV and kind of read a book or do his homework. And while he's doing that, I'll play some music, either off YouTube or off CDs, you know. And so tonight I was playing Hoobastank, and he'll often give me his thoughts or comments on things. And he's pretty open to listening to different things. And he will tell me what he likes or what he doesn't like. But he didn't have any comment about Hoobastank, which I guess that kind of fits. You know, there's nothing particularly that stands out about them, really, is there? They're kind of just radio music. Anyway, yeah, Hoobastank. Third hand, I own it third hand, and I got it for $1. Someone paid $25, and when this was bought new, I assume they would have paid around $30. So getting a second hand for $5 off, that person wasn't really much of a bargain, were they? Anyway, thank you for watching.